There's a place where the earth wears its wounds in plain sight. The hills rise around you, not with the soft green folds of most Tasmanian landscapes, but bare and raw, stripped down to stone. They shimmer with a strange kind of colour, rust red, bone white, slate grey. At sunset they glow like embers. It looks almost otherworldly, like something scorched or forgotten. And yet just beyond those hills, the original landscape returns. Ancient forest presses in close, dense and dripping, full of life. You can stand in one spot and see both. The lifeless slopes and the living green, and it's hard not to feel the weight of the difference. There's water here too, winding its way through the landscape. It should be the heart of it all, a place where platypus play, where birds come to drink, where moss creeps across the banks. But something's not right. The river moves, but it doesn't speak. It carries no song, no fish, no flicker beneath the surface. It's haunting in a way. You can't quite put your finger on it at first, but if you stay long enough, listen closely enough, you'll start to hear it. A story buried deep in the soil and stone, one shaped by ambition, by extraction, by the legacy of what was taken and never given back. This place doesn't just look like history, it feels like it. And the river at its heart is still carrying the consequences. Welcome to If These Trees Could Talk.
Today we are gathered on Wanneroo country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waters here on this land, as well as the land we mention today, the land of the Palawa people of Tasmania, and pay our respects to both nations' elders, past, present and emerging. We recognise the deep and enduring connection that First Nations people have to this country, its rivers, mountains and forests, which have sustained them for tens of thousands of years. We also acknowledge the profound loss and ongoing impacts caused by colonisation, industrialisation and environmental degradation. These waters and landscapes were cared for with great respect and knowledge by the First Nations people, and we personally deeply regret the harm done to this country, its ecosystems and the cultural heritage intertwined with them. As we explore the story of this place today, we offer our commitment to honouring and protecting these lands, to learning from the past and to walking together towards a future where the environment and its people can heal and thrive.
It was identified as one of the worst examples of river pollution in this country. This is what happens.
How did we let it happen?
How did we get here?
It's got to change. We have to create a world where the environment is valued higher than money.
Come and see what happens when we leave people whose main priority is profit in charge of our natural resources. You might need to get some buttons ready today, Megan. You're going to have to use the "but why did you do that" button a couple of times, I reckon.
Okay, let me... Okay, I've got that one ready to go. Now, what about the Melissa McCarthy kick you... do you need that one?
No.
Can I just press it because it's just cool?
Yeah, you can.
I would like to rear up and jackknife my legs and kick you both in the fucking jaw with my foot bone. That's what I would fucking love. I wish my fucking foot would go right through your skull.
It's so good.
It's so me. I didn't have to do that once in Tasmania, but I almost needed to at the hospital last night.
Oh, God. What?
So,
We've got some catching up to do.
So it's been a few weeks since Megan and I have been together because I have been in Tasmania. We've been back home now for a week and I have severe reality depression. It was so great. It was so wonderful. And we've got a little bit of a story there today. I am coming in unscripted and a little bit unhinged because it's been a big week and a massive dose of reality.
You going to tell me why you were at the hospital last night?
Yeah, that'll come into it. I just thought we'd do our catch up here. So we've been in a camper van on the west coast of Tassie. It's been amazing. So incredible. Off-grid most of the time, no phone service. Oh, so good. I could just spend 2 hours telling you about that. But we'll break it into a couple of different episodes because I learnt quite a lot while I was away.
Did you have no service the day of your birthday? Because my text didn't come through the next day, right?
No, I didn't have a lot of service the day of my birthday because...
It wasn't because I forgot.
And it's going to be part of today's story.
Okay.
And you'll understand why, because I was deep in the forest.
Okay, good.
And I really like that I didn't get your text. And I told you that. Like, birthdays are hard. Like, you spend a lot of time replying to people. And it's really lovely that so many people love you. But my family are very good at organising. And it does help that my birthday falls somewhere around the June long weekend. So we're usually doing something pretty cool. But, yeah, I had no service. So by the time I got back to the 100 Facebook messages and all the texts and stuff, I think there's some people who I still haven't even replied to.
Tell them
I'm
now.
really sorry. Thank you so much for all my birthday messages. I am so grateful. But like we were getting 20 minutes of service here and 20 minutes of service there as we were moving through different spots. And it'd say, you've got like 46 notifications. And I'm like, how am I going to, respond to all of these people? So in the end, I just gave up. So I'm really sorry if I didn't reply and say thank you. I do really, really appreciate it.
You should have sent it the next day. I got a lovely response.
Poor Megan, she was like, oh my God, I am so sorry. And I was like, man, I didn't even notice. Yeah, that's birthday ticked off. So campervan, Tasmania, West Coast. So great. Loved all of it. However, we were exceptionally concerned because Tassie is the roadkill capital of our country about having a camper van in these really remote areas. So we took special insurance because we were like, there's a high chance you could hit something out there. And then we took travel insurance on top of that because we were mostly on gravel roads. The excess is massive, so we took travel insurance on top of that.
Very sensible.
So sensible.
Did you need it? Why are we talking about this?
Well, because we made it the whole way around Tassie without hitting a thing.
Yeah.
Needed none of that insurance. Home 48 hours, Scott smashes the front out of his car hitting a kangaroo on his way home from work. And then, just the normal stuff of school and like all the messages saying, we need you at school this day for this and we need you at school for this day for that. And
athletics carnival?
I'd just taken a week of annual leave and then I was like, so I'm not going to be in 2 days next week and I'll just have to let you know about Friday if somebody can take Charlie to the athletics carnival. Anyway, your mum saved me, which that was great.
She went to 2 athletics carnivals last week.
Yeah, no, she must really, really love it. Thanks, Steves. So your mum picked Charlie up and I headed to work and literally got through the door of work and walked in and said, can Josh cover my shifts because I have to go to the hospital? Jack's on his way to the hospital. So it was a suspected appendicitis. So we sat all day, surgeons, doctors, everyone, yep, he's going to have surgery today. Turns out it wasn't appendicitis after they did bloods and an ultrasound and then ended up sending him for a CT scan because the results weren't matching the physical symptoms, and everybody who looked at him said appendicitis and they were worried that it was going to rupture. So they wanted to sort of get him on the table pretty quick. And anyway, it wasn't. He says it's stage 4 megalodon scoliosis. That's not what it's called. I'll have to find the actual term.
Glad you're laughing.
Oh, well, it's funny now because megalodon scoliosis, like I thought that was a pretty good way to explain it, but it is called mesenteric adenitis, which is literally the lymph nodes in your abdomen are inflamed and it completely mimics the same symptoms as appendicitis. So there's a big side quest. Sorry, guys, but that's what my deliverance back into reality after a week in the wilderness looked like. So my feelings at the moment are just fuck this shit and get me back there. So
I would like to rear up and jackknife my legs and kick you both in the fucking jaw with my foot bone.
So the reference to that was some dipshit that come into the hospital late in the afternoon who'd been there for like 15 minutes and was so cranky about his wait times when there was us and the lady next door who'd been walking on a broken, she was clearly a mum because she'd been walking on a broken leg for a week and then had to go in to have surgery to have it fixed because she was too busy to take care of herself. And the poor man across from us who had a massive head injury and his head was like wrapped up in a huge, he looked like he had an alien bandaged on his head because he'd had some sort of work accident and we'd all been there since like 9:30 in the morning. This dude rocks in at 4 o'clock and 15 minutes later was filthy because no one was paying any attention to him. So yeah, I wanted to rear up and snap kick him in the jawbone.
That's what I would fucking love.
Anyway, that's got nothing to do with
So we
today's
don't
stories.
need that button today.
As I said, big week. I'm coming in unhinged, unscripted, and I'm going to tell you a story. There is some facts in here that I probably should know more about if I was a well-versed researcher who really concentrated on making episodes instead of traipsing around forests at the bottom of our continent. But unfortunately, that's not who I am. I'm going to talk about the highlight of our trip. And you're going to go, why is this your highlight? But it really, really was.
It's not the text I got. I got one text from you while I was away.
What was it?
Are you going to tell us about Starlink? Am I going to ruin this?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm not telling you about
So you
Starlink.
saw Starlink.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so you said no good pics. The sun was about to come up, so they weren't as bright as other people have seen them, but I can now tick that off my bucket list. Last night is a whole story. We paid $15 to camp at the back of a little pub in this remote town where it's all cattle farms, all part of the Cape Grim Beef Syndicate, which is a world-famous beef.
Look, it's an episode.
Anyway, our $15 campsite turned into a $200 dinner because you got to have the beef, right?
Yeah.
When you can pat the cows.
Yeah.
Holy shit, it was the best food I've ever eaten. I thought Scott was going to cry. He's been eating in all these fancy restaurants last week, same beef, but these guys cook for the farmers, so they know what they're doing. He said, hands down, the best he's ever eaten. So here's the three of us dressed like homeless people eating the best meal of our lives. We made friends with all the people and the couple that owned the pub, and Charlie was playing pool with all of our new farmer friends, and we decide maybe a gin for after dinner. So she pulls out this special bottle made by the paramedics that live down the road with wild pepper berries and lemon myrtle he forages from the forest near his house. Holy hell. Then their limoncello, made with lemon rind from their trees, their rainwater, and the alcohol base from the gin still. She then makes us a cocktail using both. Megan, it was the most surreal experience. I want to buy this pub and live here forever.
So they did try and convince Scott to buy the pub. He didn't cave, which I was a little bit disappointed about. It was a very, very cool experience. Like, that will go down as one of the best nights of my life. You know how, like, you picture these things and, like, you have these big expectations for stuff, and then you just have like a, oh yeah, this is going to be cool, but it's like a meh, you know, like it's a thing on the way to the big thing that you're doing. That was just a thing on the way to the big thing that we were doing. I love that spot. I could go back there and spend 3 weeks. The pub was amazing. The people were amazing. The food, oh my God. We swam at the beach on the West Coast the following morning.
So it's winter in Tasmania.
It's proper winter in Tasmania.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was about 4 degrees outside.
Cool.
The water, I think, it said between 12 and 14 at that time of year.
It would have been warm.
It's where they call it the Cold Water Surf Classic, I think, is the surfing competition that they have there. So amazing. So it's Marua is the name of that town. And I think it's still in line with the bottom of South Africa. So you're not quite, I think it's just before the roaring 40s. So the latitude there might be 41. And then below that, so where Arthur River is the latitude 40. That's where the next landmass is, like Argentina, Chile. Did I send you the photo of the beach where we swam in the morning?
Yeah. With your food?
Yeah.
I got a photo of your breakfast.
Oh, okay. Well, we swam there.
Yeah. And then you said, I just went swimming. Yes, it's cold but exhilarating. And I wrote, you crazy fucker.
Yeah, okay. This is why Siri can't read our text. Yes, that's the photo. So that beach is all like pristine and beautiful. The next beach down, which is Arthur River, which they call the end of the world, has like got, I'm going to say it's a rock pagoda, right, that comes out of the ocean. Like, so it's like rocky, rugged cliffs, whereas that's all like beautiful grass and there's paddy melons and little footprints and stuff everywhere and beautiful sand. Then like it's only 15 minutes down the road because then you're below South Africa. So into the 40-degree latitude, and they call it the Roaring 40s for a reason because the wind has got nothing to buffer it.
40s is referring to the latitude number.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. So you get to this place at Arthur River and it's all like rugged sort of rocks that go down into the ocean on the coast. And then off the coast, there's like these little rocky outcrops. And on top of them, like, you know, when you see driftwood on a beach and there's like little logs and stuff and it's all like weathered because it's been floating at sea for a long time. These have driftwood mountains on top of these rock formations that if you were in the water and you had to climb up it, you'd need some sort of like abseiling rope to climb up it, right? And then on the top, there's like a mountain of driftwood, but it's not like little logs. It's like whole ass trees. And they're just piled and piled and piled on top of these things. Like the waves there get so big and so crazy. You have to see it to believe it. Like, I need to work for Tourism Tasmania because I would do it for free. I bloody love this place so much. So, again, still got nothing to do with today's episode.
That was my fault, that side quest. What was your highlight?
So, the highlight was what I didn't expect it to be. So, the first time we went to Tassie, which was about 10 years ago, we did the East Coast first and then travelled from Hobart across to Strawn, which is on the West Coast. And you go through Queenstown, which is an old mining town. And it was surprising the first time we went through because from Hobart, you come out and you sort of go through these rolling green hills with old colonial mansions dotted along the river, very English, quite Narnia feeling, like magical, feels like you're going through the English countryside. And then you sort of come into like foresty areas that then you might go into like a logged area and then you go down a bit further and then you're getting into like the temperate rainforest where it's all mossy and twisted and beautiful. Then you come up and then there's like these massive lakes and then you drive into Queenstown and it's just barren. It's like you have literally driven through a porthole onto the moon. And the town itself, very historic looking, and it's all old little miners' cottages with a railway that runs through the middle of it. And we only stopped there the first time. I think we had like a picnic lunch at the park and we were like, oh my God, what is this place? But we were travelling, so we didn't have time to really look around. This time for my birthday, the boys booked me the Wilderness Railway, which leaves from Queenstown and takes you up into the forest. So the night before at the camp at Queenstown, we met these lovely people. One of them used to live at Aberdare, actually. You guys should follow them. The minute I met them, Scott was sweating bullets because these two incredible people, Abby and Mitchell, who are Our Adventure So Far on Instagram. Please go and follow them because what they're about to do is pretty exceptional.
Our Adventure So Far.
Our Adventure So Far, yes. We met them just in the kitchen and I heard her say to our other friends, who was a stonemason from Hobart and his Danish partner who was just out here visiting him for a couple of weeks. So we'd made friends with them. And she says to the other lady, oh, I'm from the Hunter Valley. And I'm like, oh, we're from the Hunter Valley. She like literally used to live 2 streets away from me. So they live near Maitland now, right? But they have bought a property sight unseen up near Scottsdale in Tasmania and they're moving there. They were down there to look at a house and they're turning it into a hip camp. These guys are going to be my new best friends. They were the coolest. We loved them. Abby is just like me and talks at 100 miles an hour. So I found out so much about her. She's such an interesting person. Like, I'm so emotionally invested in what they're about to do. And yeah, as soon as she said, oh yeah, we're just like leaving our life and moving to Tasmania. And Scott was like, oh shit. I don't know if you should be talking to this lady.
I was wondering why Scott would be shitting bullets. Can I just apologise to my mum right now for how many swear words I've dropped in this episode so far? Sorry, Mum.
So that was so cool. Then they were on our train with us the next day. So it was like I had like my friends at my birthday party on the train, which was so great.
You didn't need my text.
I didn't. I had friends. It was so good. Get on the train. The boys bought me the first class carriage.
Of course.
So a little bit hoity-toity up there with our little tables, and they bring out champagne and then they bring out canapes, and we had wallaby on blinis, which was a little bit hard because I'd been patting some wallabies the day before in Corinna. But I tasted it. It was like...
Of course. You have to try these things.
Yeah. Anyway, quite delicious. Some sort of little cranberry jelly thing there. Yeah, it was delicious. It was amazing. We had scones and coffee and some sort of like really delicious bread that you dipped in a thing called Tasmanian dust that just tastes like heaven. It was all of the things. It was so great. So the train takes you up into the forest. You stop, do gold panning. There's like little museum-y sections that you can check out along the way. Then you go to a different spot and you're just deep in the rainforest, and it's a rack and pinion railway line, which was designed to... It's a boy thing. You know, it's gears and it locks in and it helps the trains get up the really, really steep hills. And they have this bit of a joke where they say, you have to say to the train, I think I can. And Charlie was like, I'm just sitting here thinking, I hope it can. And the man on board said to Charlie, is it okay if I use that, mate? So Charlie was pretty chuffed. He's going to work it into his script for his presentation. So the train ride was great. Not the highlight. Still not the highlight. We're not there yet. Before we went, we had watched a YouTube video documentary by a guy called Beau Miles. Do you know who Beau Miles is?
No.
He's my people. Like, he's quirky and unusual, and he does crazy stuff like will run a canyon because an Aboriginal man told him about how, you know, the water quality's not great anymore, and so they need a bit of conservation focus on this canyon in the outback, and so he runs the length of it and just talks about his thoughts and stuff while he's doing it. Very, very interesting man. So I'd call him a conservationist. I don't know if that's what he calls himself, but real grassroots sort of conservation. But he's just a very deep thinker, and I really enjoy all of his content. He did a YouTube video where he decided that he would take a blow-up kayak and paddle down the Queen River, which is the most polluted river in Australia, and it runs through Queenstown. So while we're on this train ride, it kind of goes along the side of the Queen River, right? And the whole time you're looking out at this river, and it's bright orange. The people of Queenstown call it the Pumpkin Soup River, and that's what it looks like. It looks like pumpkin soup.
Where is the pollution coming from?
I'm going to tell you that story.
Sorry.
This is where I should have way more notes, but you're going to have to get my unhinged version of it, right? But I'm going to give you some really great resources in the show notes. And when I say the show notes, go to the website, everybody. Go to the website. I put lots of great stuff there that can help you get a deeper understanding of the things that we're talking about. There'll be a lot in this week's show notes about this stuff because you're getting my crazy version.
ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au.
Yeah, well done, Megan. She knows her job. So, Beau kayaked down the full length of the Queen. What we did was hike to what they call the Confluence, which is where the Queen River meets the King River. Most polluted river in Australia, being the Queen. King is one of the most pristine. The history is that Queenstown's origins trace back to the 1880s when prospectors searching Tasmania's remote west coast discovered rich deposits of gold and copper in the surrounding hills. The discovery of the Iron Blow in 1883, which is a massive outcrop of oxidised copper ore, marked the beginning of rapid development in the area. By the 1890s, the Mount Lyell Mining and Railway Company had been formed, bringing with it smelters, tramways, and an influx of workers. Queenstown quickly transformed from an isolated outpost into a booming mining town, with thousands of people drawn to the region by the promise of work and wealth. Its location, deep in a valley and surrounded by mineral-rich mountains, made it both a natural site for industry and a difficult place to escape the consequences of it. To process copper ore, so it's a copper mine predominantly, they did find gold, quite a lot of gold. And I'm going to link a couple of docos plus Bo's thing if you want to know the proper amounts. But they did find like tons and tons of it. So the people who own these mines got quite rich. But the main thing was the copper. And to process the copper ore, these huge smelters were built in the late 19th century. And the early smelting operations used wood fire furnaces, which required enormous quantities of timber. So in just a few decades, the surrounding forests were almost completely stripped bare. 60,000 hectares of native bushland was felled to feed the fires. On top of that, the smelters released thick clouds of sulfur dioxide into the air. Combined with heavy rainfall, this gas turned into acid rain, which further damaged the soil and prevented the vegetation from growing back. By the early 1900s, the once lush hillsides had become barren and eroded, etched with gullies and stained with mineral colour. This dramatic transformation became known as the Queenstown moonscape, a stark, treeless terrain that became as famous as the mining industry itself. While some revegetation has occurred in recent decades, large areas remain scarred, a visual reminder of the environmental cost of rapid industrialisation. I have to say, we have noticed a difference between when we were there 10 years ago. You drive in sort of over the mountain and then the township is down in the valley and you're just surrounded by, like, they're huge, like massive. It's quite an extraordinary experience to witness. This year when we went, there is some stuff growing on the hills, which is great. It's a sign of improvement, but there's a long way to go. For much of the 20th century, the environmental damage caused by mining in Queenstown was largely accepted as the price of progress.
But why did you do that?
The economic importance of the Mount Lyell mine meant that few questioned its impact. And in fact, the dramatic moonscape became a symbol of local pride and identity. But by the 1970s and 1980s, attitudes began to shift. As environmental awareness grew nationally, attention turned to the health of Tasmania's waterways. Scientists and conservationists began to study the Queen and King rivers more closely, and the results were alarming. Water samples showed extreme acidity, elevated heavy metal concentrations, and an almost complete absence of aquatic life. The Queen River in particular was recognised as one of the most polluted waterways in the entire country. Local residents too began to raise concerns, not only about the visual and ecological degradation, but also about what it meant for the future of the region. Questions were asked about whether the pollution could be reversed and whether enough was being done to hold the mining industry accountable.
Is this your highlight?
This is part of it, but you need to know this part
Okay.
to get to
All
the
right.
highlight.
I'm very confused.
Yeah. So for decades, the Queen River served as little more than a waste chute for the mine. From the earliest days of mining, tailings, which is the stuff that they dig out of the mine, sort of crushed rock and slurry. Do you remember, like in ceramics class when they like that messy, muddy kind of stuff from the leftover ore process was basically just dumped straight into the river system. Every day, thousands of tonnes of this fine mineral-rich waste flowed out of the Mount Lyell processing plant and into the water. The river ran thick with sludge, its colour shifting with the minerals, orange, grey and milky white. And I can say at the moment it is very orange. This practice wasn't a secret. It was pretty standard procedure. At its peak, up to 1.5 million tonnes of tailings were discharged into the Queen River every year. Over time, these waste materials accumulated along the riverbed and banks, smothering the natural ecosystem. The acidic runoff from the exposed rocks and tailings further worsened the damage, creating a toxic soup that flowed into the King River and eventually Macquarie Harbour. So Macquarie Harbour is at Strahan on the west coast, Hell's Gate, Sarah Island, which was the very first penal settlement, is in the middle of Macquarie Harbour. It's incredibly beautiful, but it is a huge harbour and the Gordon River runs into it. So the Franklin River runs into the Gordon and it's a huge expanse around these rivers of just impenetrable wilderness. It's like, I need to show you on a map where this is.
Do I need to make a virtual tour for this one?
Yeah, you can if you like. Anybody who's been to Tassie will know. So have a look down here. So you can see Queenstown and Strahan there on the map, but look at the Franklin Gordon Wild Rivers National Park. Like there's not roads. Zoom in, see if you can find a road.
And it's like 10% of Tasmania.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's just pristine wilderness. And the most polluted river in
Australia.
In Australia runs into Macquarie Harbour, which is there where you're seen on the map at Strahan. In 1994, after more than a century of continuous operation, the Mount Lyell mine was shut down. The closure marked the end of an era for Queenstown, a community built entirely around mining, but it also brought the environmental damage into sharper focus. With the mine no longer operating, the scale of the pollution left behind became impossible to ignore. That same year, the Australian government commissioned an environmental review of the Queen and King river systems. The findings were stark. Over 100 million tonnes of tailings had been discharged into the Queen River, creating a legacy of acid mine drainage and metal contamination stretching all the way to Macquarie Harbour. It was identified as one of the worst examples of river pollution in this country. So, to make all of this make sense, because my highlight was not the polluted river.
I was assuming that.
So we hiked to the Confluence, which is where the Queen River flows into the King River. Now, it was a bit of a hike. It wasn't overly long, but holy smackers, she was steep. And we had to sort of go down. We did find it on Google Maps eventually, but it's not on the tourist trail. They don't talk to you about it. There's not a lot of information in the town about this bright orange river that runs through there. And honestly, like when you look at it, it looks like clay, like if you were pouring water down a clay road. It's the most bizarre thing. I've got some great photos, which I'll put up on the website in the show notes. So the King River itself, outside of the Queen, starts up in the glacial lakes and the forested catchments of the West Coast Ranges. So it's like a high alpine-y kind of flows down through all of the lush forest. And upstream of the confluence, it is pristine, amazing water with aquatic life and animals, and not just in the water, but at the edges of the water, drinking from that water. And then the Queen River flows into it. And this is where we hiked to. So the forest is beautiful. And then you go down this steep slope to where the two rivers meet. And the King River on this side has vegetation right down to the banks. And the Queen River, which is on your right, has probably, I don't know, a few metres of just orange sludge where nothing grows. I have a video just so you can kind of get your head around it. So have a look at this.
Wow.
Like when you first look at that video, it's like a proper pristine
Yeah, it is.
alpine river, and they make the joke about it being the Confronting River because the King River's obviously stained with tannins from, the leaves and stuff from the forest.
I have been to the junction of the Murray-Darling rivers
Okay.
before, and to a much less degree, you can see the two rivers coming in. One's clay-based and the other one's not. So you can see them. It's just fascinating on such a wide scale how you can just see these two colours
Merging into each other. So the problem being that once all of this acidic, mineral-dense water then mixes with this pristine water, it then affects everything downstream.
So is this your highlight?
It was the Confluence. The Confluence is my highlight. The hike in there is beautiful. And if you're in the area, put this on your list. Like if you've got a couple of days to explore Queenstown, go and have a look at this, because we hear so much about, especially here, because we live in a mining town, and you hear about these things put in place and this is what we're doing, and the government and there's all of this stuff. This is what happens when you don't keep these companies in check. And I know that there's still people out there who don't believe in global warming, and I don't know what rock they've got their head stuck under.
I would like to rear up and jackknife my legs and kick you both in the fucking jaw with my foot bone.
That's a little bit how I feel. Yep. You just really wanted to use that today.
It's a good button.
It is. It just made me think, like, I think it was my most reflective moment during my whole trip and all the places we went. And there's so many highlights, and I've got so many stories, and I've got some guests lined up that are going to come and talk to us and be able to tell you about some really amazing things, way better than I'm going to be able to tell you about it. I just think this was the moment where I just stood there, probably grateful for my life after hiking down that hill. Like, she was wild. And just going, this is what happens. This is...
How did we let it happen?
How did we get here? Like, Claire's little voice was in my head, but why did you do that? The point is that this is still happening, and we're hoping to have a chat with Jeff Hansen from Sea Shepherd and some of the amazing work that they've done, like on the South Australian coast with running mining corporations out of the Great Australian Bight. I mean, I know that when you know better, you do better, and we know better now. But when it comes down to corporate greed,
it's got to change. We have to create a world where the environment is valued higher than money.
And standing at the point of these two rivers, there is no way that you can stand there and watch the thriving growth come off upstream and then look to your direct right and look at this barren, filthy landscape and not feel something about that.
When did the mine stop operating?
1994.
Wow.
Once the King River merges with the Queen River at this is a hard word, Tipukana, the transformation is stark. The Queen River injects huge loads of acidic water, suspended metal particles and historical tailings, essentially overwhelming the King's natural balance. The pH of the King River drops significantly, creating a highly acidic environment that's toxic to most aquatic life. Metals like copper, iron and aluminium, which are carried along the Queen, are then deposited into the King's sediments and then flow downstream into Macquarie Harbour. There is almost no fish or invertebrate species that can survive in the stretch of river between the Confluence and Macquarie Harbour. So it's pretty much an ecological dead zone. The other part that I found really interesting, and this is a little side quest, but I'm going to pop this in the show notes for you to have a look at yourselves, is the salmon farming in Macquarie Harbour. So these rivers flow into Macquarie Harbour, which is full of salmon farms. Well, it's not full. There's just a couple there, right? If you talk to anyone who lives around the areas of Tasmania where salmon farms are, they've got a very different story to tell you than what the salmon farms have got on their website. The silt and stuff that comes down sort of settles towards the bottoms near these river mouths. So I don't know how much the acidity and the minerals that are in that water are affecting the fish in those farms. Needless to say, I don't know after standing next to that river whether I'm going to be buying farmed Tasmanian salmon anytime soon. And I'm going to pop one in the show notes that was recently just done by Four Corners about JBS, which owns Ewan Aquaculture, which is one of the salmon farms in Macquarie Harbour. They're just mass feeding these big groups of fish, and a lot of that settles because it doesn't get eaten. Then you've got the waste from all of these fish that there would never be that many fish in that space. Whole thing with deoxinization, is that how you say it, of the water at the lower levels. Smarter people will tell you things, and I'm going to include that in the show notes for you to have a look at if you're interested in it. But yes, basically at the lower levels, the oxygen is taken out of the water, which means that the native species who call Macquarie Harbour home can't live near where the river comes out because it's full of the shit from the Queen River, and they can't live over near where the salmon farms are because it's full of salmon shit and food pellets that are on the bottom, and there's not enough oxygen in the water for them to breathe. So where are they going? Do we need to eat salmon that badly? The Gordon River cruise is stunning. Again, another highlight. Do it if you have the opportunity to. But it wasn't mentioned. I've been to Tasmania 4 times, and I had to learn about this from a guy on YouTube. You know, I think it would be great if this was turned into a tourist draw card. Come and see what happens when we leave people whose main priority is profit in charge of our natural resources. It's an important lesson that people should learn. And you can say, oh, look, you know, progress, and you're not going to go without charging your mobile phone when there's no coal to burn to make the electricity. That's okay. I understand that. I understand we all want our modern conveniences. No one wants to be going back to washing like Barrel was in Queenstown in, the late 1800s.
Not in that river.
Definitely not in that river. But there are ways, and there's technology that can be invested in, and I just don't think we should narrow our mindset because this is the way things have been done for such a long time. I think we need to start broadening and looking for solutions if we want our grandchildren to have a goddamn future, because it's all good to say progress, 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 but then my grandson's child is not going to be able to drink the water in this country if we don't start doing something to change some of the things that we're doing. So yeah, my highlight of Tasmania was a polluted river. There we go.
Shannon, I feel like if our listeners don't have any plans tonight, that they should start this podcast again, and every time you say the words side quest, they should have a little drink.
This comes out on a Sunday, and that would mean a lot of people calling into work sick on Monday. I think the reason that this was my standout experience, and it wasn't just for me, Scott felt the same way, and Charlie was pretty mesmerised by it too. We also took a lot of photos of mushrooms. There are some
Saw your mushrooms.
Oh,
Beautiful.
that was like 3 photos. I've got about 300 photos of
what
mushrooms.
are you going to do with them?
I don't know. I might turn them into a book. I'd like to learn the names of all of them.
Yeah.
That's what I'd actually like to do. But I just think that whole experience, it was standout for all of us, was a powerful reminder of how industrial progress, while bringing economic growth, can leave a deep and lasting scar on the environment. For over a century, mining practices poured toxic waste into this beautiful waterway, turning a vibrant living river into a lifeless stream and devastating the landscape and ecosystem that once thrived there. But I guess too, it's also a story of hope and resilience, because it's unrealistic to think that progress will just halt while ever there's money to be made. And since the 1990s, efforts to halt pollution and restore these rivers have shown that healing is possible, even if it is extremely slow. Today, as we look at the fragile balance between industry, nature, and community, we're reminded that the decisions we make now will shape the health of this land and the waters for generations to come.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of If These Trees Could Talk. If you would like to access more about the places or information included in today's topic, please visit our website, ifthesetreescouldtalk.com.au. If you would like to follow us on our adventures, check us out on Facebook or Insta. Our creative writer is Shannon Walters, and our podcast is produced at Bellevue Studio in the Hunter Valley with audio production by Megan Anderson. We love to hear your feedback, so please rate and review, and if you would like to hear more, please subscribe. We look forward to you joining us for our next adventure.